Okay, so today I'm going to do a quick build video with a description and a guide and a little bit of a gameplay showcase about a purely solo build. I've had a lot of requests for this. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to, but I've got the right pieces now. I've got everything composed, and this is going to be a build for people out there that really struggle to find groups for whatever reason, whether you don't like to play with them, you don't have a microphone, or you just, you don't know anyone and you prefer to go in solo. There's a variety of reasons, but in the end, you're going to want a build that's going to augment that playstyle, and I have one here that I think really fits the bill. So I'm going to discuss what it is, why I've done it, and how it works in solo play specifically, and then I'm going to show some PvE content in the Dark Zone, to showcase that. I don't actually have any PvP footage for it right now. I'm putting this out. Most of our squad are on vacation right now, so PvP is a little bit lacking, and it's going to keep lacking for another week or so. But it does function the same way, and there's a lot of things I can talk about that the same way they work in PvE, they'll function in PvP as well, and you'll have just as much utility and survivability. So one of the key aspects of this build is survivability. I really wanted to prioritize something where you're not going to die super quick. You're going to be able to survive. I mean, if squads are going to go rogue on you, you're going to be able to run away, shake them off. You're going to be actually more trouble to kill than you're worth, hopefully, is kind of the goal of this build. So it's going to utilize 2-2-2, two-piece final measure for the 50% exotic damage resilience, two-piece tactician to check off both the 4,000 skill power from that, and then backpack and mask to augment that with skill power on them as well. But two-piece tac and two-piece sentry's call. Now the two-piece sentry's call is what is the most flexible about this build. I would say you're going to want to keep the EDR from the final measure and the skill power from the tac, but the two-piece sentry's call could easily be replaced for two-piece blind to help your pulse. If you're more of a marksman rifle style build, two-piece deadeye or two-piece hunter's faith, there's a lot of different things that you could put in there. So and if you do really feel that you really want to go towards like a tactician build or something like that, you can move away and actually go four-piece tac if you'd like to. But I'm approaching it from a less than a tactician standpoint and more from a solo play hybrid standpoint. So the two-piece sentry's call is going to help my gun DPS and help me in like a solo versus NPC PvE style like game environment. So when I'm actually trying to clear objectives on my own, like I can go down into DZ 2, 3, 4, and I can actually clear landmarks by myself with this build. I really don't think it would be that functional in DZ 6 to solo play. One mistake and you're dead, but it does work in the lower DZs. You can clear content, and overall it's going to give you a better solo play experience than if you possibly didn't have the survivability, or if you don't really want to run with a squad. It does function quite well. So I'm going to go into the specifics of each gear piece now. Looking at the chest piece, I have a final measure vest. It's a stamina roll. I'm trying to be extremely tanky. I also have EDR on this chest, so I'm pairing for the 50% from two-piece final measure as well as the 13% on the chest piece. So 63% as of right now, just looking at this gear piece and knowing that I have the second to complement it, which is going to help me. Sticky bombs aren't going to kill me. It's very easy now to counter the sticky bomb builds. They're effectively useless against most players. Whenever you encounter a player that does not have final measure or any EDR, you can one-shot them if you're running a sticky build, but honestly, it's more trouble than it's worth. It's more rare than it ever used to be, and you're probably not going to have much luck with a sticky bomb. There are fun sticky bomb builds, but right now you're protected from them, so anyone that's worried about tacticians or getting one-shotted by a sticky with chain reaction and stuff like that, you can rest easy with this build. It's not going to happen. The mods in here, I actually have one stamina with armor mod to achieve the armor cap. That caps me out at 75%. That's the only stamina armor mod I have. The rest is going to be devoted to skill power to achieve that 33,000. So stamina mod with skill power in the second slot. That's going to do it for the chest piece. Moving on down to the holster, I'm going to cover each gear set in tandem, one after the other. I have a final measure holster 268. Some great rolls on that. I like it quite a bit. I rolled armor. Always roll armor to help you achieve that armor cap. Right on the holster. That's the most valuable major attribute on the holster. And then skill attributes, 9.5% pulse critical hit damage. This is great. I am going to run pulse. It's going to be one of the things that helps me, use my gun to clear NPCs very quickly and very efficiently. I like that quite a bit. So then I'm going to move on to my tac pieces. I have a backpack, with one mod slot. That's how they all come now. 6,697 skill power. That's a great roll. Not so great on the stamina roll here. This could be a 268 backpack with nearly 100 more stamina. So that would be, ideal, but this is a more realistic build format. A lot of people don't have all 268 pieces, especially if you need to farm from a solo playstyle. It's going to take you a lot longer to get those 268 pieces, so 240s might be a lot more accessible for you. and they work just as well. You know, they're not completely min-max, but with a build like this, you'll have plenty of survivability, so you'll be all set. Stamina backpack, skill power in the major attribute role, 100%, you know, suggest that and would encourage people to roll that. The skill attributes on here aren't useful for me. I would prefer anything to do with healing and anything to do with pulse, but I wasn't quite lucky enough to get that. And then, as you can see, I've got the 2-piece 4,000 skill power set bonus, so that's really nice as well. In the mod slot, firearms with skill power. Now, I'm using firearms mods. I could be using stamina mods, but I'm using specifically firearms mods to help me check off the brutal talent on my G36. So that's something that I'll cover later, but something to keep in mind. Moving on to my mask, I have a Tactician's Authority mask with a large skill power roll. It's a 268, so this could roll much higher. I really wish it had. It is one of my only firearms pieces, so this is a 722 firearms roll mask, which is very nice. That's a good roll. And in the mod slot, I have stamina with skill power. You know, increase that toughness, get that extra skill power. Super nice. So the skill attribute isn't relevant for me on this build. The minor attribute doesn't really matter all that much. You can prioritize something like shock or burn if you're trying to survive enemy players hitting you, because shock turrets are going to be one of the few ways that you'll go down. So having some bonus shock resistance will be really nice. Support station healing speed, not relevant. Skill attributes, you know, go for things that augment your abilities that you're prioritizing. So moving on to my Sentry's Call, I have these 268 knee pads, good roll. I mean, low on the stamina aspect. I could have rolled over 100 more stamina on these, which would have been really nice. I did roll critical hit damage again to boost my gun DPS, but you know, critical hits aren't going to be the main functional, you know, thing in this build that you're always going to be going for. They are going to be super valuable when you do pulse, so that's why I do have that there. But you can re-roll for armor or something like that, and if you do that, that's going to allow you to achieve a higher you know, tank statistic in the toughness category, because you'll achieve the armor cap without having to use a stamina mod. You'll get more skill power because you don't have to prioritize armor as a secondary attribute on your mods, and your heal's going to do even more. So you'll sacrifice a little bit of gun DPS in order for more survivability. So that's really user's choice. If you want to do that, by all means go ahead. You know, it'll be harder for you to die, and it'll be, you know, quite effective. Moving on to the gloves, I have these 268 gloves. They're not a perfect roll. Critical hit damage, damage to elites, and critical hit chance. I would prefer damage to elites, you know, in terms of having to fight players sometimes, to be assault rifle damage. I would really prefer that, but it works fine. I mean, it's going to help me a lot against NPCs, and from a solo play perspective, it's going to allow me to clear landmarks easier. The skill attribute could be much better. Could be something like, you know, first aid, self-heal, anything like that. Something to do with pulse again, but I wasn't quite lucky enough to get that. And it's a relatively low firearms roll for 268s. That could be much higher in the 700 range, but it gets the job done. Now, if I had rolled higher into the 700 range, I would actually need to equip less firearms mods in order to still activate brutal on my gun. So that's something important to note as well. And then I could prioritize more stamina mods and gain quite a bit of toughness. Now, I do know that a lot of people are going to have better stats in this, especially in solo play builds, but this is functional. It's something that I wanted to put out there for my subscribers, especially the ones that have trouble finding a group, just so that you can have maybe something to look at and base a build around. You can go off in a completely different direction if you want to. It'll still be functional, but I thought I would put this out there, you know, as a little bit of a helpful guide, perhaps, and I really do hope it helps people. So moving on to my guns, I'm going to talk about this G36. These are receiving a nerf. That is important to keep in mind. Somewhere in the vicinity of 5 to 7%, and I do not know when that's actually coming. I'm quite, frustrated with that. I really think that Massive has lied to their player base on repeated occasions. They have said specifically, we don't want to nerf things, we want to buff other things, okay? So taking a look into player psychology, nobody likes having things taken away from them. When you nerf a gun that a player has, that they put work into getting and that they like the way it functions, you're hurting your player base. You're hurting their impressions of you. You're hurting their intention to spend more money. You're really just shooting yourself in the foot. And they have repeatedly done this, even though they've advertised that they're going to buff other things up to par. They don't do that. They repeatedly nerf. They don't stop nerfing all the time. And it's just a flat-out lie when they say that they're going to buff things. So I'm really disappointed that they're doing this, but at the same time, I'm not totally disheartened, because I do know that there will be other things that emerge into the metagame, you know, besides this shotgun meta that's so viral right now. And I'm going to be doing a lot of, you know, assault rifle coverage when that nerf happens, to try and help people, to the best of my, you know, knowledge and perspective, find that new, most effective assault rifle. So I'm starting to ramble on. I'll try and cut it a little bit shorter. Brutal, a very fantastic skill. That is what I'm prioritizing to activate. So I've activated that with my firearms mods and stuff like that. So once that's active, that's a giant, you know, boost to damage. Very helpful. Sustained, killing a target increases your health by 6%. That's nice. I would prefer to re-roll that to something, you know, more helpful. Something like Deadly would be great, or even, you know, Responsive especially would be fantastic for solo play, but I haven't been able to. But I did re-roll the third slot of Focus to Competent. So a lot of people say there's an inflationary aspect to the G36s. Your meter is going to be higher than it should be. Mine is the exact opposite, okay? My meter is much lower than it should be. My meter is actually 14% less effective than it is going to be in almost the entire duration of every single fight. Every time I'm using a skill, I'm getting 14% weapon damage. So that's really nice. My meter DPS is actually somewhere in the vicinity of 25, 26, 20, maybe even over 30,000, which is just really something that's important to note. Since I'm in a solo play, you know, mindset and standpoint, I'm going to be using my same old SOCOM M1A, really effective gun for clearing NPCs, and from a solo play perspective, you can output huge amounts of damage very quickly, very accurately, right to headshots, you know, with a good roll, better than mine. I would roll off accurate for brutal, hopefully, most likely. With a really solid rolled M1A, you can clear NPC content like a breeze. So, you know, a great secondary option if you don't want to go with something like a submachine gun or a shotgun. I would always suggest having, you know, a sniper rifle or a marksman rifle, you know, as your secondary that you can draw on if you need to. So that's going to do it for, you know, the gear that I'm running. And look at my abilities. My pulse is extremely powerful. Now, because of my 33,000 skill power, I have 34.4% critical hit chance that I will get when I'm pulsing. Much raised up from the 16%, you know, base. 78.4% critical hit damage when I pulse, and my build is going to revolve greatly around this to burst targets down. It functions very well. You can kill NPCs very quickly. You can stand your own against players. When they attack you, you can oftentimes melt them. They may not expect a solo player to be able to fight back. You will be able to with this build. It's very, you know, it's very practical. Overdose, just to increase survivability, I pretty much run overdose heal on every single one of my builds, unless I have the vigorous chest piece, in which case I'm running booster shot. But you can actually switch this out for booster shot, or, you know, however you want to do it. It does work well, and you can change the build up. Another option with the gear sets, you know, zooming back out to my gears, you can switch out the 2-piece Sentry's Call for, you know, if you have the right pieces to do this, for like a reckless or a vigorous chest piece and savage gloves. So there are alternatives to this. Just to, you know, this is an open-ended build where you can theory craft your own stuff. Then I'm going to look over at my talents. Looking real quickly, I have triage right now, but that's not actually what I'm going to be running for this build, because it's, you know, I switch it quite often. I'm going to run One is None, definitely, because from a solo play perspective, you're going to be allowed to land more headshots. That's always what you're going to be going for on NPCs, and getting that bullet back into your clip is going to be really effective. You're gaining a large portion of, you know, DPS that isn't going to be advertised on your meter. And then Chain Reaction I don't need, because, you know, that was from when I was running my Sentition, you know, Sentry Marking Sticky Bomb build. Really fun, by the way. Check it out if you haven't already. It's a really fun thing. And you're going to go down here to Strike Back. If you reach low health, active skill cooldowns by 20%, you know, reduced, that's going to allow you to heal more often, pulse more often, especially, you know, when you are letting yourself take damage, trading with NPCs from behind cover. You can drop back into cover, have reduced cooldowns, and it's going to function, you know, very well. So that's the talents that I'm running. I'm going to flip it over to some gameplay really quick. It's not going to be that long. I'm going to talk about it from a PvE perspective and a solo play standpoint. Okay, so I'm going to show and display right now that this build does function extremely well when clearing NPCs. When you pulse, you get a large boost, not only to your base damage on your weapon, but also to your critical hit chance and critical hit damage. You can trade with NPCs. You can do significantly increased damage, and you can melt them very quickly. Now, these aren't the hardest NPCs in the Dark Zone. They're only 33s. They're not actually 35s, but soloing 35s with any build whatsoever can be kind of tricky, especially because, you know, one shotgunner, if it flanks you and you don't see it, it's game over, and there's no one to pick you up. So you're going to want to stay in a little bit of an easier content zone if you are solo playing. If you can solo DZ6 and DZ5, please let me know how you do it. I'm very impressed. That's really great. So you can see I melt through these NPCs very easily. You can clear content by yourself, and you have good survivability, because your heal is so strong based on that 33,000 skill power that you're going to get an entire overheal from it. You're going to heal, you know, more than 1, even 2 bars into your overheal, and it's going to be recharged very quickly. That's something that's important to know, is that the skill power, you know, decreases your cooldown so that you can be popping your skills more often. From a solo play perspective, that's extremely valuable. As you can see there, I heal for a large portion, especially when it double procs. If you are inside the radius for more than, you know, a fraction of a second, it will double proc and heal you for a larger amount, twice as much as it normally would. Now, as you can see, I do get low, but I can just get back into cover, pop a medkit if I need to. My heal recharges very fast, and I can continue to drop things, you know. You could be using tech support. That's actually a very good talent that you can run with this build. As far as I know, it's been fixed and it functions correctly with pulse now. So a very viable alternative to running strike back and getting reduced cooldowns at low health is actually running tech support to extend the duration of your pulse. That's going to allow you to bounce from enemy to enemy a lot better. There are some benefits to running strike back instead, which I prefer, such as the fact that it helps with your heal as well. It's not just based around extending the duration of pulse, but it actually lets you get your heal faster. So right there, it did actually allow me to heal before I normally would have been able to. It's a competitive build. It's functional for farming. I can clear like the library, the sports store, all of these different landmarks down in DZ 1 and 2 and 3 quite easily. It does take some time, a lot longer than if I had a squad, and I'm not saying that this is something you should be doing in the Dark Zone, because it's definitely not ideal. Playing this game with a squad is definitely how it was intended. I'm also demonstrating the fact that you can switch back and forth between your weapons. You don't actually necessarily need to always have your primary. This build is versatile with the survivability, so you can use an M1A and things like that. And from a solo play perspective, sometimes you're going to be in these situations where you run out of ammo, and you're actually having to progress based on the ammo drops that you found, especially if you don't have a squad to bail you out and to clear the content quickly. You're going to have to make do, survive, and kind of play the game the way it was intended to be played in a certain regard, because solo play, and maybe they actually didn't intend this, but solo play used to be fun and viable, and kind of no longer is, unless you have like a really perfectly set up, build and things like that. So I really wish they would bring back some things to benefit solo players, and that's why I'm putting out this video. Hopefully this is some good content for you guys, but I feel like right now the game is not friendly to solo players at all. Yeah, I'm probably going to wrap it up there. This just shows that you can clear NPCs. There's no PvP, but I will make a quick note. This build does function well in PvP. Your heal recharge is extremely fast. It heals for a very large amount. You have a large amount of toughness. You're fully armor capped if done correctly. That's kind of what I would say base any build that you create around. Armor cap yourself first. That should be the first thing that you're doing on any build. Because if you encounter a player and you're not armor capped, you're just going to take massively increased damage. It's the more, or the less armor you have, I should say, the more you're distancing yourself from the armor cap, and it's going to spiral out of control very fast. So base any builds that you create around the armor cap. That's going to be about it. I kind of lost my train of thought, but I hope this build had some valuable information. I want to say a big thank you. The channel's growing just absolutely amazingly. I could not be happier. Please contribute to the discussion down below, and if you have a better build or a different build that has different gear sets and prioritization and things, go ahead and let me know what that is. I would love to hear it. The feedback has been wonderful. The community has been wonderful. Another shameless plug on all my videos now until the shirt's down. We are selling the t-shirt, the upper echelon gaming t-shirt. I think it's a really cool design. It's got the wings on the back. Go ahead and pick that up if you'd like to. It really supports the channel. We're trying to sell 75. I doubt we'll get to that, but if we do, I've already picked out a microphone, a better microphone. I know a lot of people have complained about the hissing or the white noise that's in the background of this one. It's being addressed. I'm on top of it. Don't worry. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So I appreciate the feedback. As always, thank you for supporting, and have a nice day.